What's the 10th thing you think about when you think about Marvel?
Soundstripe.
What's up, people? Welcome back to another episode of Stars and Garters. I'm Katie Pettit, and I did take a break, so I'm back. Thank you for the applause that I'm sure is going on in your room or wherever you are. I was on a trip, and I had a good time, but I didn't want to do any podcasts, and I didn't want to pre-record, so I didn't. And I'm sure you miss me a lot, but I'm back, so you can all rest easy now. And since I did not do any episodes last week, and I didn't do Random Fandom Friday the week before that, I will go ahead and fill you guys in on what I've been geeking out over lately, since you have obviously so desperately wanted to hear that the last 2 weeks and have been robbed of that privilege. I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 15, and I just realized that I can play the DLC, which I thought I was gonna have to buy, when I got my own PlayStation, because I didn't want to buy it on my dad's PlayStation. But we have it already, and I can play it, and it's really great because there's this dude named Prompto who's great, and I get to play his DLC, and it's great. Also, my girlfriend just died in the game. Noctis' girlfriend, the guy who you play as, so not my girlfriend. So that was really sad, but then my family's kind of making fun of it. What else? What else? Still reading through the X-23 comics, still great. Gambit and X-23 are a great little father-daughter thing together. It's awesome. I just found this song. It's called First Burn. It's like a Hamilton Extra thing. It is incredible. I have no idea where it comes from. Like, it has extra verses and stuff. And I'm wondering, since it's called First Burn, maybe it was like the first draft of Burn. It's very different, but like they have like all these women singing it together, and it's really, really awesome. And don't tell anybody, but I've been watching Dancing with the Stars. That's like my guilty pleasure a little bit. Like, Dancing with the Stars and Masked Singer is like, I don't feel like I don't love people's reaction when you talk about those kind of shows. But they're kind of fun. They're kind of silly and fun, and also sometimes the dancing is actually really cool because I can't do it. But yeah, that's basically it for the last 2 weeks. But we're not here to talk about all of those things. They could all have their own episodes, but we're not going to talk about them today because it is a Marvel Monday. And today I'm going to be talking about something that I don't usually talk about on this podcast for like most of the things, but especially Marvel, because it's not what Marvel is known for. It's obviously, Marvel is known for like action, cool powers, like cool characters, all this awesome, flashy, fancy, super fun and exciting stuff. But one thing that it's not really known for is its romances. But it definitely has some really iconic ships in there that, like, you know about, but they're not the first thing you think about when it comes to Marvel. So I don't often think about it, but I decided it was suggested by a friend, and I decided I would think about it and see which are my favorite relationships. I'm just gonna be tackling the X-Men for today, because I was gonna do both. I was gonna do the X-Men and the Avengers in the comics and the Avengers in the movies, and then my script for the X-Men one was already like a page and a half long, and I was like, maybe I should split this episode. So I will probably do an Avengers in the comics and movies after this, because that's going to be way shorter anyway. The Avengers struggle with their relationships. But since the X-Men is at times just a soap opera, which we love, it's great. It's the most exciting action-packed soap opera you've ever seen, but sometimes it is a soap opera. They've had their share of great, awesome couples. So I'll just be highlighting a few that are my favorite, that I think work the best together, maybe talking about a few that don't, but like not really getting too deep into the ones that don't, mostly focusing on the ones that do, but talking about the ones that do work together will probably bring up some that with these characters that did not work as well. So, the first up, probably the most iconic relationship of the X-Men, as it should be, because it's adorable and amazing. We have Scott Summers and Jean Grey, Cyclops and Phoenix, or Marvel Girl, whatever you want to call her. Apparently Phoenix is bad juju, but I just call her Phoenix. Yeah, this is an iconic relationship. Screw Emma Frost. I hate that. I don't like Cyclops and Emma Frost, because Emma Frost just sucks in general. And Cyclops is a good boy, Emma Frost is not good enough for him. She sucks. I hate her. So I don't like that relationship. He just saw that she was telekinetic. She was like, oh, Jean, but she's not Jean. She's not anywhere near Jean. I think this is the most like recognizable X-Men pairing. It's just always talked about. It was like lasted so long, and it was very important, and they had a love triangle going on. It was just everything. If you know the X-Men, you know this relationship. Like, it's the first thing you think about when you think of X-Men relationships, if you know about that stuff. So one of the reasons they work so well is because like they're one of the only really wholesome relationships in not just the X-Men or like Marvel, but like all of comics ever. Because I mean, it's hard when you're superheroes. You're going on like life-threatening adventures. You get caught up in the moment sometimes, and you don't get like genuine, like wholesome. We love each other. We want to be around each other and like help each other relationships. You just kind of get like, I want to kiss you right now because we almost just died, and that's most of what happens. But they have a long and very wholesome relationship. Just like it's so nice. They're both just like good people. They're both solid people, not edgy at all. They're just like, I can't say Boy Scouts because Jean is not a boy, but they're that type of character, just solid people, not looking for drama or trouble or anything. They're just like genuinely good people, and they're so nice and sweet, and it works really well together because of that. And they're like one of the only ones to like get married and have a child, even though that's super complicated, and they kind of technically didn't, but also they kind of technically did. But that's a whole thing. They have a very epic love square at this point, because you had Cyclops and Wolverine both liking Jean. Don't ever do Wolverine and Jean together, by the way. That's not ever a thing that we do. It's good for like the tension and the drama, but don't actually do it. It's like it works because we can clearly see that Wolverine is not right for her. That's why the square works, because it's like, oh, poor guy, he wants her, but this is not a thing that's gonna happen. So just like, don't ever do that, Marvel. It's not a thing. And then you had like, and then obviously Cyclops and Emma have a thing, which is not really a point of like tension between Jean and Emma, because she's dead most of the time. I don't know the current situation of her. I don't know her living status currently, but it's a really nice. It's a lot of tension and drama in that little square with all of those relationships going on. But you can always see like when they come together, it just works, because they're not edgy. They're just good little people, just happy, nice little goody two shoes, and they fit. It works. And it's adorable. I mean, even with all the Madeline Pryor drama, he still married Jean because she was Jean in every sense of that, except not being the first Jean, and not being the original or kind of the real Jean. But she was Jean in every other sense, and they got married and had a kid, which is really nice, but also complicated because it wasn't really Jean. But that just shows that if it was Jean, like, they would have gone the same way if it was Jean. So it's just all good and like genuine. They love each other and they want to be with each other, and it's great. It's so wholesome, so sweet, and they just work together. And it's like, the fact that I like this relationship is a big testament to it, because like, I still like these characters. Like, I'm not gonna say they're bad characters. It's just like, this personality type, this kind of character is just not my favorite. The good people, not a fan of them. But, just the, like, really nice and sweet people, just like, ugh, whatever. Um, but I still like them because they have cool powers also, so that's a big plus. But the relationship, it still just works. Like, even if I don't love the characters, I can just say, yeah, that makes complete and total sense. Like, of course you would do that together. And now, I mean, it's so complicated now because of how many times she's freaking died, and because Madeline Pryor exists, and Cable is all about time travel, and just like, ugh, like, ugh, crazy. It's wild. Okay, so the next one is kind of the exact opposite of Jean and Scott. Just they fit very well together, very similar kinds of people, but in the exact opposite way, in the way that it's a lot more fun for me to see. It's just a lot more easy for me to root for. We have Rogue and Gambit. It's funny to me that I wrote Jean and Scott as Scott Summers and Jean Grey, and not as Cyclops and Phoenix. But for me, like, Rogue and Gambit are Rogue and Gambit. And I'm not gonna write Anna Marie and Remy LeBeau. Remy LeBeau, or whatever you want to say his name as. Because, I don't know. They're just not great. They don't really roll off the tongue. You know what I mean? Rogue and Gambit are great, though. Those are both really cool, very, edgy, I guess, names. But, first of all, screw Magneto. That is gross. Stop it. In every form, on every platform you've tried to do it on, that is gross. I know she can touch him, but that just makes it grosser. And that just, no. No Rogue and Magneto. No, no, no. No creepy old man with the young child. She's not a young child. Never mind. She's not a young child. Just saying she's too young for him because he's old and he's creepy and he's weird and she's just cool and he just is weird and I don't like him. So no Magneto in this relationship at all. Not even a question. Not even a love triangle with like Jean and Scott and Wolvie and Emma. Like, because that's actual tension and like you can see how the characters like would work or like not work. There's actual tension there. With Magneto and Rogue, it's just like, nope, I don't ever want it to happen. Like, I don't even see why he is interested. Like, it's just entirely unpleasant. Anyway, so like I was saying, they are like the exact opposite of Scott and Jean because they're both like ex-villains and they're like rough around the edges, that kind of thing. And they're both like way more, they're definitely more like edgy characters. Rogue is like this tough Southern Belle kind of thing, and then Gambit is, oh, how do you even describe Gambit? He's a thief. That is his character. He's the thief archetype, and I have no idea what the words are to describe that personality. But I feel like a lot of you will know what that means by that description. But he's great. Love Gambit. Love both of them. Rogue a little bit less, just because I have less experience with her, and I don't know, she's like, I don't know, her southern accent is a lot sometimes. Gambit's great though, and Rogue is still pretty cool. Also, another thing they have in common, they're kind of both stereotypes. A little bit. I don't know what the Cajun stereotype is. I don't know if there is a stereotype, but like Gambit's accent, first of all, is also very extra sometimes. Channing Tatum looking at you. But of course, I don't really know what Cajun means. So I don't know how they talk. Maybe that's just genuinely how they talk. I mean, they both have ridiculous accents, is what I'm trying to say. That might have been racist, and apologies. But I'm just saying. To me, it's like, I can say that about the Southern accent because I am Southern, kind of. Not in the typical way, but I am from the South, so that counts. But so I can say that about her, that she's like kind of funny. Like, it's kind of a lot the way she's Southern. But I can't say anything about Gambit because I don't know anything about Cajun people. But anyway, he speaks French a lot, so that's fun. So just the thing about this relationship is it like grows a lot because the characters have a lot of growing to do. They don't start out great people like Scott and Jean do. They have a lot of growing to do, and they get to do it together, and it has a lot of chemistry because they're both, similar personalities, both like edgy and kind of they like to have fun and they like to joke around, but they're also very tough and loyal and stuff like that. So they have a lot of chemistry, a lot of like tension because of the thing where she can't touch him, and sometimes that's kind of important in a relationship, especially since I'm sure they got married at least once. Probably aren't still that way currently, but like it's an important thing in a relationship. And they have all that tension, and it's that they showed that in X-Men '97, which I didn't love. I got so mad at Rogue about. I mean, it was fine for like story and you know uh, drama aspects, but I was very mad at Rogue because Gambit deserves better. But they do have to figure that out, and they figure out how to like be close and like do all the cuddling and such. And they have to learn how to work out their relationship and actually be close together because it's really hard for them in a lot of ways, not just like physically. They just they're both like kind of they have some traumas, but they both work together since they both have the traumas. They can relate to each other, they can talk to each other, and they know how to they know that they can trust each other because they've both gone through very similar things. I mean, not very similar, but similar like types of things, if that makes any sense. But I mean, it's two of like my favorite, like obviously the coolest characters in my opinion. It's two of them together. So what more can I ask for? I think this one is great. It's like, I mean, Jean and Scott is a favorite, but it's not the same way as Rogue and Gambit because Rogue and Gambit is two of like my higher up characters in general, but it's them together, so it makes the relationship even cooler and just easier to root for me. All right, moving on to like I guess a less iconic one, but still it's the thing where it has to deal with one of my favorite characters, my fifth favorite Marvel character of all time. Go watch that episode. It's so I just really liked this relationship. I've seen a lot of not a lot. I've seen other relationships that she's had, and this is like the obvious best one, and I really wish that it had worked, but it struggled. It's in a weird place at the end because both of these characters are in a weird place right now. Really weird place. But I have gone ahead. I'm gonna mention Kitty Pryde and Colossus. That one's even weirder because the first one I did both of their actual names. Second one I did both of their superhero names. This one I did one's actual name and one superhero name, which kind of makes sense because Kitty Pryde has struggled to hold on to a superhero name. I still like Shadowcat. She sometimes uses that, just not. She doesn't stick with it. She's had a bunch of different names, but Colossus is always Colossus. So I just think of Kitty Pryde as Kitty Pryde and Colossus as Colossus, and I don't want to say Piotr Rasputin or however you say. I mean, I know they call him Peter, but like sometimes they don't spell his name Peter. Sometimes it's like Pyotr. It's some Russian name, but it's basically Peter. I think it's like Peter in Russian. So, but anyway, I haven't seen a lot of it. I know it goes a lot farther back than I've personally read, but I saw enough of it. It was really highlighted in the Astonishing X-Men series, the one that was had Joss Whedon and John Cassaday together on it. It was a really, really great series. But Kitty Pryde was highlighted in this series, which I loved because I love her. But also her relationship with Colossus was, because it had been going on for a fairly long amount of time, I believe. But I obviously had never seen it before, and it was just a new thing to me. But it was allowed to kind of be brought to the forefront and like had a lot of light on it. A great credit to this relationship is that it works despite the fact that when they first tried to start kind of like setting this thing up, she was underage. And that was a little bit odd. But then she grew up and they were old enough to date. And the gap is not as bad as like Rogue and Magneto. So, but it still works despite that kind of sus beginning. it's not the most smooth and like obviously we fit together relationship like the last two were, because it's not like they have very similar personalities or similar backstories. But the main thing is just like there's a lot of genuine affection there. Like they just really care about each other. And they also sacrifice a lot for each other. And it's just you can see that they're very they just really do love each other a lot. And even though they don't have this specific thing or this specific trait that really connects them, they still just like genuinely care about one another, which is really nice. And they are just able to have a good time, and there's not as much like drama and conflict in their relationship. Obviously, they're X-Men, so there's drama and conflict around them all the time, but just in their relationship, there's not as much drama, and there's no triangle going on. They've had other love interests, but not like in conflict with this relationship. Like it hasn't. They have not liked someone else or had someone else like them while they were in a relationship together, as far as I know. And just especially in the Astonishing X-Men, you can just see they just like to be around each other. They have a great time and they just really care about one another, and it's really nice because they don't have to have all the drama. They just want to be together, and it's pretty nice. And they should have ended up together in the end, but like it just didn't work. There was so much magic tomfoolery with the magic, just because like I mean, magic in both the thing and the character, because there was like his sister, Magic, like died and Kitty killed her in some way. I don't know. Like it's something happened with Magic. Magic is a creepy, weird character who I don't know anything. Like I can't sort anything out about who she really is, but and then like actual magic has happened and like time travel and I don't know what's going on anymore. I don't know who's alive and who's not. I just am confused. But if it like they should have ended up together. Once Kitty came back, they should have gotten together. Should have like gotten married or something. But they did not because timeline and craziness, which is so sad. But alas, it is what has happened. Alright. So, that is the three big ones I wanted to talk about in the X-Men thing, but since this is a Marvel thing, and there's this one Marvel character that I love to talk about, even though she's not my favorite character, I just love to talk about her, because she does not get enough attention. She needs all of the attention, because she's really, 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 really awesome. And that is obviously X-23. I did a whole episode dedicated to her. You should watch it. And I've only learned more about her since then, and I love her even more. Like, she's just really cool and awesome and incredible. So since we're talking about X-Men relationships, why not take a little section all to herself about the relationships that she has been in? And it's surprisingly, not complicated, it's surprisingly extensive, I'll say. So, first one I ever saw, the first one that like she ever had, because it was a big part in her growth as a character, because obviously she was still in her stage where she was like struggling to act human, because she was still pretty young, still pretty fresh out of the facility, and struggling to be act normal, still a little stilted, a little antisocial, that kind of thing. So the first relationship I've ever seen with her is her and Helion, Julian Keller, which was in the new X-Men series, which is an awesome series up until the end. And it was like the first time she ever had felt those feelings for another person, and it was a great start because it started out with him kind of saving her life because the new X-Men were in a fight with Nimrod. She got injured more than her healing factor could heal, and he flew her back, like completely overloaded his powers and flew her back all the way to the X Mansion so that she could be healed, which was really cool. And it was especially important for that series because Helion had kind of been a jerk to her. He was kind of a jerk to anyone, but he was particularly not great to her. But he was kind of throughout the series, he was kind of getting better at like the teamwork thing, and so this, especially since it was her, kind of solidified her as part of the team and was a big step forward in him being less of a jerk. So it worked for both of them, and it was a good start. It makes sense. If he saves your life, it's gonna make him look at least a little bit more attractive than he did before. So during their whole thing that they had, it was pretty short lived, but he was a little bit of a jerk. She is a little bit not normal and just not social and not very normal teenager at all. She had some problems with just acting human. But they both had these big problems they were going through, trying to work through, trying to be a little bit better person, and they both helped each other in this regard. She kind of opened up like a much much less jerky side of him, and helped him, learn how to work with other people. And then he was big on like teaching her kind of the like don't shoot everybody, don't stab everybody. Like some people, a lot of the people that you fight can actually live, and you don't have to like stab all of them. So that was really nice. They had that going for them. And then it got really weird in the last issue, and there was a whole like love. It wasn't even a love triangle. It was like a love octagon or something. I don't know what they were trying to do with that one. But then it came back, and in the end, however, so they had to split up because Helion was he was in a really bad spot. He lost his hands, so that would tick anybody off. But he loses his hands. He's not doing well. He kills someone, and all the X-Men are mad at him. And he's in a bad spot when he comes back and reunites with X-23. And he's kind of reverted to his hot-headed and like jerky ways. So X is kind of like, I do not like to be around you anymore, and you gotta sort some stuff out before you are attractive to me again. So I did like this one overall, and I kind of wish that it had continued and that they had gotten back together and that he had fixed himself and they all worked out. But the way that they did both of the arcs for both of these characters, that they were showing Helion kind of have a recession and falling back into like all his jerkiness because of what had happened, and then X-23 learning more to like not need his relationship necessarily, and kind of being able to see what she needs and realize that it's not him in this moment. Both of those arcs for both of those characters were making sense, and they worked for the characters, and it just happened to lead to them having to split up. But since it makes so much sense, and what led to that worked out and wasn't like stupid, it made sense for both of the characters. I get it that they had to split up. It was okay. I'm not gonna say it was like a poor choice because they did it in a way that worked for both of the characters. So the next one that I have seen and gone through was this weird but also freaking awesome thing that she had with time displaced Angel. So I did talk about this in her episode, but brief explanation is that the original 5 or 6, I don't know, X-Men came to the future from their time and had some shenanigans with the current X-Men. So Angel was a member of the original X-Men, so there's like, for a time, there's this young version of Angel before he got complicated and traumatized, running around the timeline. And so X-23 teams up with the all-new X-Men, is what they're called, the combination of some of the X-Men and some of the time-displaced X-Men. She teams up with them, and then her and the young Angel have a little thing. So look, I get it. Time travel stories can be annoying. I am not as annoyed by them as I've seen some people be. A lot of people be. Like, I mean, it is overdone, I would say, personally, in my personal opinion, but sometimes it's cool. Just because it's overdone doesn't mean every time it has been done is bad to me. So I kind of, I'm kind of okay with it. It doesn't really, I don't really like see time travel and go like, oh, why? I just like, oh, I wonder how they did it this time, and I just see, I don't always love it. I don't always hate it. It's just whatever. So I didn't hate this relationship. It is weird. They're from two different timelines, but like it's not the first time it's happened before. Um, they were so cute is the thing. It was so adorable because like they had this whole it was completely an opposites attract thing going on because she's this tough, no nonsense, trained assassin, oh my gosh, assassin, and then Warren is just a good boy essentially, like young Angel, young Warren, just a good boy. That's his whole deal. Just $1 million smile, blonde hair, blue eyes, like goody two shoes, do gooder, good boy, that kind of thing. And it makes like no sense on paper, but they have that, that thing when it's two completely opposite characters and they just kind of work because all of the things that one is lacking, the other one has, and it fits. It's like a little puzzle piece, and it's pretty cute. It's one of the more just like it's it's not like necessarily they're perfect for each other. It's kind of like it's so it's almost it's just like it makes so little sense that it is adorable. Like, I mean, I don't know exactly how to put that into better words. Like, just it shouldn't make sense, but it's they have so many great moments because of how little sense it makes. Obviously, Warren had to go back to his time eventually, so that puts a little bit of a damper on the relationship not existing in the same time. It's a rough long distance relationship to go through. But uh, I did like this one. I will fully admit it. It was adorable, as I've said, but like it had to end. I completely get that. You cannot have the young X-Men running around with their older counterparts because that just gets old and it just needs to stop eventually. So this one had to end. It did have to go. If it stayed around, that means Angel would have had to stay around, and that wouldn't have been great, and it would have gotten tiring, even though the relationship was really fun. So it just had to go, which is sad, but it did. So I accept it, and I'm not mad about it. And then, last but not least, that I know about and have seen, this I still can't pronounce his name. Cinch? It's Cinch or Sink, or Cinch or Sink. I'm gonna go with Sink. Or Cinch. Oh gosh. Sink. We're gonna call him Sink for this episode. The last one she had before she died, I know a lot less about this one, like significantly less, like very little, because I haven't actually read the comics. I just have read about the comics. But I do know the basic gist of it. They are the main thing, like a big thing about this one. Like they're technically the longest running relationship in X-Men history, which it's kind of a cheating way to say that because they got together when they were locked in this vault where time, as far as I understand it, like time kind of stands still, and so they got in a relationship, and apparently they were in there for like several years. Like it could have been a lot of years. Like I don't know how many exactly because they didn't really age that much because of the way time worked in it, but it was like a longer than any other X-Men pairing has been together. So that's pretty impressive. I mean, I didn't get to see it, but if they stuck that long together, that's always for a comic relationship. That's just gotta give props to them for that. And then, though I don't know it that well, I do appreciate how it served to conclude her story because their relationship was a big part of her death because he was the one who had to let her go and like kind of let her psyche go and the thing they were doing for her to die. So I do appreciate how that led to that because I'm like I've said before, I do think her death worked for her as a character. So the way it kind of wrapped up her story, they like I appreciate that part of the relationship, even though I don't know much about it. So I don't know, I wouldn't say that it would be my favorite one because I haven't seen it again. But I do appreciate what it did for her as a character. Okay, so obviously, we're talking about X-Men, and there's an X-Men who was my favorite Marvel character of all time, who I haven't mentioned, even though he does have a storied history when it comes to romance, I guess. But we'll go ahead and mention him. My guy Wolverine, like he's let's just say like bro gets around. You know what I mean? He's kissed like all of the female members of the X-Men, including Storm, which I just found out from my dad yesterday. That kind of shook me a little bit. I was like, dang, because they're the ultimate like friends. They're just great friends. And I was like, oh, that was his decision to do that once. But it was only once, and you know, they didn't do anything with it from what I heard. And you know, he loved Jean. That was a huge thing. Again, they just don't work together. And yeah, he's meant to be alone, in my opinion. Like, sorry, bro. Like, I know you have those feelings in you just as much as anyone else, but I think that he just works better alone. He just struggles with the romance in every time he's done it. And so crazily enough, to me, it's kind of crazy. He was actually married. He settled down and tried to like have like peace with this Japanese woman named Itsu or Itsu. Not sure how you pronounce it. And they even had a kid together, Dakin. Dakin's important, and he's like a whole character now. My dad hates him. I don't hate him because he was in an X-23 comic, so he can't be that bad. But, you know, they had a whole thing. But then she died. Then she was murdered, because of course she was. So, I think that Wolvie, he just needs to settle down, you know? He doesn't really work with, anybody. He's a lone wolf, and he should stay as this. Oh, also, the Professor X and that alien chick. That relationship sucks, so... Anyway. Yep, that is all the ones that I wanted to talk about. These are my personal favorite X-Men relationships. The way that X-Men does relationships in my brain is, like, really different from how it is in Avengers, because the X-Men is a little bit more... Well, first of all, I know a lot more about X-Men comics-wise than I do the Avengers, because I like the X-Men characters more, so therefore I own more X-Men comics. So I just know more about their relationships, but I feel like it's very different from how they do the Avengers relationships. I feel like the romances are just different, and there's a lot more like X-Men romances that I root for, but it'll be a very different kind of episode, I feel like. And also the X-Men is just more like dramatic and intense, I feel like. I mean, I would not have thought that, but they just like are. They have all the dark storylines, like people are dying and coming back all the time. There's like racism going on consistently, and you know, relationship drama in all of it. So it's very different from the Avengers, but you know, these were the highlights for me, the ones that I think are great and should go together. If the timeline was like a thing that affected anything anymore, some of these could be total endgame and like work out in the end, but unfortunately, so you know, but these are the ones that I liked the most. Alrighty, that will be the end of this episode. Thank you for watching. Tell me who your favorite X-Men ship is in the comics. Do you think that one of these characters that I talked about should have been with a different character? You are wrong if so, but don't worry. I like to laugh at your comments sometimes. Just kidding. All your opinions are valid, because it's about comic books. And I will not fight anybody over comic books. I might say that I will, but let's not be that serious. Thank you. I said that already. Thank you for watching. Again, make sure to comment and subscribe and follow and share and whatever else you want to do that is helpful to me. That'll be great. I will see you guys next time.